Anywho, this is Cendrine. Don't Marwa. Huh? Did I pronounce
Very
it
good.
right? All right.
A natural. A
I've,
natural.
I've been practicing for 3 weeks. I
Oh,
am
wow. I'm honored.
I am so glad that you put the pronunciation on your website. Like,
I know
oh,
people have struggled to pronounce my name properly, so I completely understand. So, yeah.
the T is silent.
Yeah, well, unless you want to pronounce the T and then you'll be probably annoyed at me. That's what my mother used to do when she was pissed. So, if you pronounce the
Richmond.
T, I know you're mad at me. So,
Oh.
no T.
So your mom would mispronounce your last name when she was mad at you.
Yeah, in my families, when people were annoyed at me, they would pronounce the T at the end. So
Oh.
it's not a good sound for me.
See, in America, it's if they use your full name, so like your first, middle, and last, then you knew you made something bad. Dana
Oh, yeah,
asks, right off the bat, is your name French?
absolutely.
You
I
were
was born and raised in France.
in,
So,
in Toulouse? How do you say it? Toulouse?
Toulouse,
Toulouse. I had it
Toulouse.
right the
And
first
I know
time.
people joke about it to win. Yeah, I know this joke. So Toulouse is in southern France. So southwest.
And then you lived in
Yes, yes.
Canada for a good chunk of your
Oh,
childhood?
I came to Canada in 2003, so it's been more than 20 years now. Yeah.
And then you moved back to France, and then you came back to Canada?
No,
No? Maybe I had
never
read that
moved
wrong.
back. No, 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 no. I went
Dan,
back for vacation, for a visit, but that's about it.
Dan says, nice. I lived in Versailles for a year. I know some French.
Oh, très bien,
I used to be able to count to
très
4.
bien.
I
You
don't
still
know.
can. You still.
Back in back in the 90s, I used to be able to swear in 9 different languages. That was my
Oh,
goal.
interesting.
One of them
Oh,
being Navajo.
oh,
Alrighty. So, um, I love your photographs. This is one quick thing that jumped out at me right off the bat. Especially, I love fractal images, and yeah,
oh.
I don't know what it is. I love fractals. Um,
Mhm,
but you also do poems, art, photography. Out of the many things you do,
mhm.
which ones do you say that you could not live without doing?
Oh, it's so hard to answer.
All of the
Well, I started
above.
my career as a poet. I started my career as a poet, really, so I thought that's what really ruled my world until photography came into my life. Haven't taken photos in ages, actually, because the weather's been weird.
Yeah,
But yeah, definitely photography. Definitely photography. It's
that
my favorite um, art form. Yes,
oh. And I love your
but
pictures that you've got too. You have some really nice photographs on your website. I really like the section of your website where you have the poems that go along with the pictures.
yeah.
Those are really
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, multimedia is something that I've done for quite a while because like poetry is nice, but then storytelling can take so many different forms, and that's why I like photography because to me, a really good photographer is not someone who's necessarily focused on the technique, but who understands how to tell stories
Mm,
via composition and the way they take photos. So I find poetry and photography work particularly well together. Because then
mm,
it's for me it's strong storytelling.
yeah, I can see that. Well, like the saying goes, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
some of them are really nice. And everything we're talking about, you can visit Cendrine's website in the description down below. I have the link to it. Um, you are the co-founder of Auroras and Blossoms, where positivity and inspiration meet. I actually bought one of your books, Auroras and Blossoms
Oh,
books, without realizing it.
yay,
Um,
awesome. David will be happy when he sees the interview.
I really like. I'm not a big poetry person, but there's quite a few in here that I really liked, and so this was definitely worth buying. This is Particle of You. It's on available. I got it off Amazon. Um,
Mm.
so what would you like to elaborate on the purpose of Auroras and Blossoms? Because I read a little bit about it, but I figured that you would do a better job explaining what that is exactly.
So, Horizon Blossoms was born 5 years ago. David Ellis and I have been friends for quite a while right now, and we were getting really tired of the way the publishing world was working in terms of magazines and stuff like that. Uh, we see so many talented poets out there because initially we wanted just to focus on poetry. We see so many talented people who never get a chance at being published because either they don't know the right person or
Mm.
what they do doesn't fit the
Oh yeah.
editorial line. Um, and we wanted to focus on something that said we want to inspire the people who read us. And we want also the platform to focus on family friendliness, which means that no matter the topic people would write about, it would have to create conversations between people of all ages, meaning that a kid could go with their parents and read the poems in the magazine or in the anthologies. And we wanted to inspire people to think positively, but just not to be positive for the sake of being positive, but thinking, this poem talked about death, but there's a message behind that poem that says, for example, it's important to grieve well. Or it's important to say goodbye to someone the right way before it's too late, before you're unable to do it. Basically, that's what it is. So, Auras and Blossoms is really a work of passion, I should say. Too
Mm.
bad David is not with me right now because he would say the same thing. But we really wanted to inspire people to think more positively, or at least to inspire to think differently about the world around them. So we started with poetry, basically, and then we tried going into different art forms. And we have a yearly anthology where we feature all sorts of different types of arts, poetry, short stories, paintings, drawings, and so on and so forth. And really, the goal is to encourage people to think about the world they see differently.
Mm.
And also, for 2 years, we had a yearly anthology for young writers between the ages of 13 and 16. So it was mostly poetry. And it was very good too because we realized there are so many talented people and young kids that if they're not encouraged early, they will not try to continue later.
Mm.
So we thought it was a really good concept for kids as well. So basically, the concept is inspiration, want to be to inspire people no matter the age, and we want people to see things differently. Really, that's what it is. Yeah.
And those anthologies are part on Amazon too, right? Did I see those on
No,
Amazon?
we
No?
don't work with Amazon anymore because the problem with the distributor we use, and when you do it via Amazon, it's a little different. But when you use a distributor like Draft to Digital,
Mm.
which is the distributor we use, um, Amazon doesn't allow you to include content that is freely available
Mm.
in a paid ebook. So unfortunately, we cannot do that because we cannot prevent people from, already publishing their stuff and then submitting it to us.
Oh,
That
yeah.
would be unfair. We tried that, and some people cheated, and our account was almost banned by Amazon and our distributor because Amazon was saying, no, the content you're using is already available online. You're not allowed to do that. So,
That's sad.
so we no longer work with Amazon.
Well, yeah, I did click on your draft to digital link, which I used on mine too for Freelancer's Tale. Um, if you go to Cendrine's website that is in the description down below, I believe I have a link to the page where you can see a collection of all of her books, and um, it's the books to read link. I think it's from Dresser Digital, where it shows you all the different locations. Like you're available on Smashwords, Biblio, like a big long list of stuff. So, real quick, let's see. Diana says, "Oh, Neil says she also has how-to books as well." Yeah, and I saw your how-to books, and some of them I'm a big fan of. I like your aspiration, um, the 100. What was it? I just looked at it. It's 100. Well, I'm kind of embarrassed now. Damn it! Now I'll look it up. 100. Sorry,
That's okay.
I was just looking at it. And I almost bought that. Oh, okay, you're my positivity journal, 100 action verbs
Yes.
and affirmations for daily
Yes.
inspiration. I like that idea. The only reason why I didn't buy that instead is because I am a big fan of paperbacks. I have to have paperback and hardcover books. I never read ebooks, but I really like that idea. I think that's awesome. And you have your positivity journal. You also have a few how-to books too, as well, don't you?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the list of books, I believe that is the link I have in this video's description. So if you want to
Yeah,
see,
all my books are not on Amazon.
yeah,
So people are better off looking at my websites if they want. And one thing I encourage as well is to support indie bookstores.
and you got a
It's one
big,
of the big,
and you have a
yeah.
big long list of indie bookstores.
I did the research because I did that. I created that page because I wanted to educate. I'm the kind of person who walks the talk.
Hmm.
Meaning, if I open my mouth and if I'm going to say something to you, it means that I've experienced with it. I've experienced it. I've run tests to make sure that it worked and so on and so forth. So I'm never going to say something, oh yeah, this works, and I'm not sure if it works.
Yeah, I'm
If
the
I'm not
same
sure, I'm
way.
not going to say anything. I'm going to say, do your research. So when I created this page, it was basically because some readers had asked me, where can I find your books? I don't want to be on Amazon. I don't want to go on Smashwords, Barnes and Noble. I'm not interested. Do you know if your books are available in independent stores? And I'm like, well, that's a great question, and I'm going to inquire. And I looked and I found my books, but it took me weeks and weeks and weeks of work. So I created this page as for my readers, of course, but also to show authors that if you distribute your books widely, this is what you are likely to get for distribution. And to show that indie authors can get that kind of exposure that we initially thought was just for traditionally published authors. But now, with wide distribution that open to indie authors as well, thanks to Draft to Digital in particular, then you can get a huge amount of distribution and exposure that you wouldn't get if you limited yourself to just Amazon or Barnes and Noble and so on and so forth. So it's both for my readers and for authors to show them that it's possible, even as an indie author, even if you think you're a small indie author, it doesn't matter. Go with self confidence, do that kind of things, and you'll see it works. So it boosts your self confidence as well because you're like, oh my God, my books are in France, my books are in Italy, my books even if it's just 3, 4 bookstores, it doesn't matter. It's just the sake of saying, you know what, I'm a published author, and this is where my books are published. I mean, are available. Sorry. So it's a good boost for your self confidence as well. So I encourage indie authors to actually do that and do the research and to try and find where their books are available because it will boost your confidence. I can guarantee you.
That'd be worth it just for me to say I'm world renowned. I'm a
Yeah,
worldwide author.
exactly. And you're not boasting. You're not boasting. You have proof
Mhm.
I have proof on that page. People say, "Oh, you're not famous," and I'm like, "Well, I'm not famous. Who cares? My books are available in those stores.
Yeah.
It's all that matters."
Yeah. Dan says, "Oh, I love poetry. I also do sketching and photography. It's cool how you are multi-talented, which you are. You have like a lot of different things on your belt. You're also the coolest person I have interviewed.
Oh
Probably
well,
got a
I don't
fan."
know if it's a compliment.
Yeah. Nia says that kind of encouragement I needed when I was a kid, and she's referring to when you're talking about auroras and blossoms, which I think is an amazing idea. And if anybody's interested, the content you do have the submission form on auroras and blossoms, and the link to that website is also in the video's description.
Yeah, we actually vet contributors because we want to work with the people who really understand what we're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
Because before that, we had quite a few problems with people wanted to contribute, sending us spam, irrelevant submissions, not reading anything, and complaining that we were not fair to them, and so on and so forth. So our solution was really to vet contributors so we could work with the right people and really put out the best quality possible,
Oh
because
yeah.
we have, like, especially this year, we have a group of very, very good artists who are going to work with us. So I really look forward to releasing Volume 5, because this year will be Volume 5. So yeah,
Nice.
so we've had to vet, unfortunately, to ensure that we can continue producing quality anthologies, um, which unfortunately is not always the case
Yeah.
with contributors.
Lambda Epsilon says, ask her about her photography journey. Her visual work is so inspiring. So yeah, how did you start doing that? Because I know that you started doing poetry in 2005.
Yes.
When did the
Well, thank you for the
photography
kind
come?
words. Yeah. So, well, I started with poetry. Then I had a spent short time like writing a play. And then back in 2008, 2009, I was kind of thinking, are you going to take a break? What do you want to do with your life? And so on and so forth. I was asking myself a few questions. And then I went to Syria in 2009 before the civil war. And it's an absolutely beautiful country. Like I love this country so much. And I had a point and shoot camera with me, which is basically you
Mm.
click, you hit the shutter, and that's it. Takes the photo. You don't have, you can't do anything else beyond that. And when I returned from my trip, I started looking at my photos. I'm like, oh, well, that's not too bad. And I started sharing my photos online, and people were like, oh my goodness, are you a professional photographer? I'm like,
Nope.
I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what are you talking about? This magazine contacted me to actually buy some of my photos of the trip, and I'm like, okay, like what's going on? Like what's happening?
Mhm.
No idea. I had no idea what I was doing. And then in 2010, I was lucky enough to go to the Olympics in Vancouver, the Winter Olympics. And I went to several areas in Vancouver, started taking photos with another camera I had. And when I returned from that trip, started looking at the photos and sharing them online again. People were like, oh my God, your photos are so good. They're so good. Like, how do you do it? Are you a professional? I'm like, okay, there's something right here. Something is happening. I have no idea. But I'm like, well, maybe I have a future in photography. Let's see what I can do with it. So I started practicing. I started asking questions. I started doing research and practicing in my backyard. And I really started enjoying it.
Yeah.
I really started focusing on composition, on storytelling. I started focusing on little things that we often miss. I found that so much fun. So for 4 years, I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And then a few friends said, you should definitely post your photos online. You're so good. Just give it a try. I started posting my photos, and people were like, oh my God, create a website, do something with it. You're so good. So that's how it started. 2014, that's when I started. So it's been 10 years now. And of course, I have better gear than I used to. But by the way, you do not need like very expensive gear to be good. But you have to invest a little bit of money in gear anyway. But you don't need to spend $5,000 on gear. You can buy it used and so on and so forth. So but it's all about practice and wanting to tell stories and so on and so forth. So I'm completely self-taught, honestly, completely self-taught. So I know a few things about composition, stuff like that. But if you ask me technical questions about cameras,
Not a clue.
don't ask me because I don't. I know the very basics, the very basics. Uh, the rest is I learned as I went and have a lot of fun. And I know when I take a good photo because this is exactly what happens to me when I know I write a good haiku. I know when I write a good story. This is the same thing that happens to me every single time. My heart skips a beat.
Yeah.
It's like in my head, something pops up, and I'm like, yes, this is the photo. This is the story. I know it is good. I know why, because I feel so much happiness inside. I feel so much joy. So that's basically what it is. I worked really hard, but it didn't feel like work because I had so much fun. But I still worked really
Oh yeah,
hard, but by having fun.
that's
That's
the way to
really
do
what
it.
it is. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so this is one of my questions, as kind of an addition past the auroras and blossoms, is what exactly is a warm mug of cozy? I only got to spend a
Okay,
little bit
so
of time on that, but it would look like an interesting website.
uh, so a one cup of cozy is something David Ellis and I started 2 years ago because we are really, really interested in cozy mysteries.
Hmm.
Very,
Oh,
very interested in the genre. So we've read quite a bit, and we wanted uh, to create a space where cozy mystery writers, especially writers of short stories, uh, could be in anthologies, basically, because we see anthologies of long stories or
hmm.
individual books, but we rarely see anthologies. So our goal was to bring together writers of short stories and have them in the books so they could be in an anthology because short stories is not very common in the genre, I've noticed. So that's really what it is. So last year we released our first volume. We had 9 stories, fantastic stories by very talented writers. So hopefully we'll have a second volume. We're hoping.
Cool.
So that's basically what the website is all about.
Yeah. I'm actually starting. The book I'm writing now is my first mystery, but it's a dark mystery. So everything I write is dark, so not exactly cozy. Let's see. Since you have worked in different genres, would you recommend a writer doing the same, or just have them stick to one genre? Or does it depend on the author and their experiences?
It depends on you. I the reason why I decided to work in several genres, it was not planned. I thought I was going to do poetry my entire life, and that was it. You
Yeah.
know, things like that are not planned. It's a matter of personal preferences. But for me, it's all about challenging myself. I want to challenge myself all the time. So I believe, for example, something like writer's block happens because we become too comfortable in our own genre. And I've noticed that because I created poetry forms, because I created my own type of digital image, I've done all these things, writer's block rarely bothers me for too long. Because if I'm stuck as a writer, I go into photography, or I do digital art, or I paint as well. So it gives me outlets to explore my creativity in ways that make me feel stuck. But to answer the question, really, it's up to you. It's really up to you. There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you're comfortable doing is fine. Really.
Cool. Uh, let's see. Diana says, does she think that social media is necessary to be successful as a creative person?
No, I don't think so. It's an added bonus,
Like I
but
say, it makes marketing a lot easier. Because, like I've said before on the show, that if nobody knows your book exists, no one's going to buy it, and so you have to get your name out there.
but how do we define social media? That's the big question.
Oh,
What is
yeah,
social media?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
some people will
technically,
say social media is no social networks.
yeah.
That's
Well,
what people say. For me, social media is blogging. It's newsletters.
oh,
It's
yeah,
it depends on your definition of social media. So if we take a broad approach to social media, yes, it's necessary because if you don't have a blog or website, how are people going to find you?
yeah.
Right? It's not necessary to be on social networks to have an
Like
audience,
Twitter and
but it's
Facebook.
necessary to have a website and a blog if you can, if you have time and you feel like doing it. But it's important to have a presence online, yes. So it really depends on the way you look at the definition of social media. That's really how you define social media.
Yeah,
Social networks, I would say no, it's not necessary. But it depends on whom you talk to, right? This is my answer. But other people will tell you, oh, yeah, it's necessary because that's how I got really successful. Social networks. Other people will tell you newsletters are my bread and butter. That's
yeah.
how people find me through my newsletters, through my blog, and so on and so forth. So look at your own definition of social media. Really, that's at the end of the day, I think that's what is really important to
Yeah,
ask yourself about. How
that
do I
is
define social media?
that is definitely a different way to look at it. I never thought of my blog as being social media, but it is. In a way, it is. It's accessible by society. So I'm a big
And some
proponent of
people
having
will
a
say
blog.
that social media some people will say that social media is really tools to create conversations and forums and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, social media, if we take a broad approach to it, social media is all the tools that allow you to create content and share information uh, with the world.
Yeah,
So at the end of the day, it can be emails, it can be newsletters, it can be videos, it can be because if you look at it, YouTube is not a social network. It's not a social network
yeah.
because you don't have direct messages. You don't have a people don't direct message each other.
We have
So the
the
definition of social network has you have to have, for example, private messages. You have to have an ability to have public and private accounts, for example, stuff like that. So by definition, YouTube is technically is not a social network, but it's still social media because you create that content that you upload and people can access your videos.
yeah,
So
pretty much the only social media that I actually put effort into is YouTube. But that's for a completely different reason. Let's see. Okay, so you started using poetry. I read that you started using poetry in 2005 to deal with depression. I wrote a book on how I became a freelance writer while dealing with one of the darkest moments of my life. It was all about keeping positive and keeping myself going and stable. And I turned into a success from it. um, how much of an impact does your creativity have when things do get tough? Like, how often do you use um, your images, your photos, your poetry when you start feeling yourself not uh, when things just aren't feeling right? You know what I mean? Like, how often do you use it for therapy? I guess.
well, I got out of depression a long time ago through art, thanks to art actually. So I'm no longer depressed, though I
That's good.
no longer have problems with depression. Um,
So you were
but
able
I've
to channel
always
you channeled all that into your art instead, which is a great constructive way to do it.
absolutely because I forced myself to be positive all the time. Yes, life is hard. Things happen. We are dealt bad things in life, definitely. And not acknowledging that is a problem in itself.
Mm.
So the way I worked my entire life is like, yes, things have happened to me. I've had a difficult childhood. Things didn't happen the way I wanted them to happen. But you know what? That's the way it is. What am I going to do about it? So I'm going to write stories that I know because I learned the lessons. So I'm going to write stories, I'm going to write poetry that I know will help others. Because I always write from the point of view of I've experienced this. I know I
Mm.
went out. I mean, I went through it. I embraced it. I'm now better. So I'm going to share my lessons through my stories and my poetry, my photography, and so on and so forth, so that I can help others who are in my situation and who may say, well, I don't know. I don't know how to get better. Right? So I'll give you an example. Many years ago, when my mother committed suicide, but it
Sorry.
was not something that was surprising. We were all expecting it in the family because she had tried to kill herself so many times. So we all knew that one day, eventually, she would succeed. Um, so I was ready for what was going to happen. So I prepared myself for months and months and months. So of course, when your parents die or someone you really love dies, you have to grieve. It doesn't matter how prepared you are for that situation, you will have to grieve.
Mm.
But the benefit of preparing myself for that situation was that the grieving process was actually very healthy for me. Because instead of thinking, oh, my mom, because you know how you have all these stages that you go through
Oh
grief
yeah.
when someone dies. You know, you're angry, such and such and such. The anger I had dealt with right away because I was ready for it. So when she passed away, I had already gone through several stages of grief. So my grieving process was actually very healthy because I was at the end of the grieving process. So I studied myself in those days and I said, I'm going to use the art form that I know the best, that I've mastered over the years, to write things that I know will help people. So I wrote a book, short poetry for those who fear death.
Yeah, I saw
So
that.
the title was very targeted. And why am I telling you this? This whole context. Maybe a couple of years later, I received an email from a reader who said to me, I have to tell you this. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. It's not exactly
Yeah.
because I don't remember exactly what was said, but that person basically said, before opening your book, I wanted to kill myself. I read your book. Now I want to live. So
That's
just talking about this giving me shivers,
yeah.
right? So, but it tells you how important it is to create from that kind of space and that kind of energy. Because even if you have one, I'm not gonna lie, this book sold maybe five copies,
Mhm.
but the few copies that were sold, I know had an impact on the people who read them. So it's the best compliment I could ever
Oh,
receive.
yeah,
And
that's
knowing that the book saved one life is why I'm doing what I'm doing, really. So,
same here.
yeah.
We're kindred spirits. Um, okay, let's see. Neo says that I admit poetry was huge in helping me deal with my feelings or expressions that I couldn't say out loud. I didn't realize it until after I stopped writing and dealt with my emotions differently. I use I use writing quite a bit for therapy. It helps me relax, and I'm able to focus on my fiction instead of um, having real life grind me to dust. So, writing for me is therapeutic. That's why I write quite often. Okay, so this is a little bit on a higher, more happier note. I enjoyed the readings you have on Spotify on the Haiku Shack podcast. Um, that's also on our website. To link to that. Uh, I really liked the most recent one. It was a reading of one of the poems. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was really really interesting. What inspired you to read those out loud with the music in the background and all that? That was really nice.
Okay, so I haven't recorded an episode in ages
Oh, so
because
they're older
unfortunately I
ones.
don't have much time left. Like at the end of the day, you know what it is.
Yeah,
when you're
I,
when you're done with your day,
I wouldn't know what
I
it's
would
like not to
sleep.
do
I
despair.
would eat. Anyway, I I recorded a spoken word CD many moons ago. I did on my own with my laptop at the time. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And it's part of the challenges that I want to give myself all the time to be a better artist and a better person in general. The goal was really to work on my diction, the way I pronounce words, because of course
Mm.
English is not my mother tongue. So I wanted to challenge myself and prove to the world that it doesn't matter if you have an accent, like a foreign accent or not. You can still do it and do it well if you work hard. So I really enjoy the process of recording my own CD and working on my voice, self acceptance, and stuff like that, like to build my confidence really as an artist.
Mm.
And because I started doing photography and doing all these other things, I no longer had time to do it anymore. So it was 2 years ago. I'm like, I want to do it again. I want to try again because I love it so much. So um, I started reading poems by Emily Dickinson, who is,
There, that's when I
it's a
see
cliche, I know, but she's one of the best. Let's just say that. Anyway, so I started doing a series on Emily Dickinson, and then I started reading poems from other female poets, and then I realized, well, you know, I love poetry, but I love poetry written by women more.
Mm.
So I want to focus on that because yes, everyone knows Emily Dickinson, like okay, but I want to do all the poets who might not be as known, at
Mm.
least their names. You may say, oh yeah, I know the poem, but I didn't know it was a poet. So, and I wanted to focus on poems that are short enough so people don't have, to listen to 10 minutes of my voice either. And poems really that are short and are catchy and at the same time deliver an impactful message. So that's really what it is about. That's why the name of the podcast is the Haiku Shack, because I write haiku. I'm a huge fan of haiku. So, and especially traditional haiku. So that's why, because haiku is short, it's impactful. A good haiku is about reading between the lines and hitting you with a message, something that you were not expecting from the short poem. So that's really about the impactfulness and the shortness of the poem. That's why it's the haiku shack, really. So yeah, and so I haven't recorded a new episode in very long time. The beauty of this podcast is that I can take it in any direction I want. If I want to focus on a different topic, if I want to do something different with it, I will. I want to be flexible.
Okay. Well, I don't think you have anything to worry about with it being too long because the one that I listened to, your voice, just it was like perfect for the whole thing. So it was great. I
Thank
enjoyed it.
you.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Diana says that's so amazing. The highest compliment you can receive as an author. This is in reference to when you were talking about your
Mhm.
book, kind of how it saved a
Yeah,
life.
absolutely.
That is,
Absolutely.
I don't know if I've ever saved anyone's life, but I have helped a lot of people start their writing careers. So that to me is
It's
reason
a
enough
good
why I
thing.
do
It
it.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You might have saved their lives too, because what
Yeah,
if they couldn't be a writer, and then you tell them, oh yeah, you can do it.
yeah, that's a good
That's
way to look at it.
that gives them confidence. So it matters too.
I try.
Little things.
Okay, so out of all the books you've authored and co-authored, which there are more than 40 of them, which would you say is your favorite and why, if there is one? Because you've got a
Oh,
massive list of stuff that you've done.
it's hard, but okay. I'm gonna show you this one,
The
The
meaning?
Meaning. Yeah, that's the one of the latest ones I released. I released it at the end of last year, December. Uh, so for the longest time, I had wanted to do a project that was more personal. Um, I wanted to focus on poetry, poetic thoughts, photography, and short personal essays. Focused on important topics. For example, I talk about my mother's suicide
Mm.
in the book. I talk about the time when I cared for my grandmother who wanted to die. She was very sick, and she was ready to go. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Basically, that's what it is, which was another life altering situation for me. Really, that
Yeah.
was one of the most beautiful things I've ever done for someone. And seeing someone die with a smile on their face because they died exactly the way they wanted is the greatest gift you can give someone, and it changes you deep inside. So this book is really about life and important topics like this, lessons that I've learned along the way and that I want to pass on to people who might need it or who might need a reminder that life is more than black and white. There are many shades, shades
Mm.
of gray,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
different gray from the book, not the book we're thinking about. But yeah, this is really what the meaning is all about, and it's hard for me to say that it's my favorite because after reading so many books, it's impossible. It's just like the usual cliche. You're asking me to choose my baby among all the babies, my favorite babies among all babies I've made. So it's a cliche, but it's unfortunately it's very true. But
No,
right
I get it.
now, because it's one of my most recent books, I would say because it's still fresh in my memory, I still remember all the process, the experience through. I mean, the process I went through while working on the book. I would say it's one of my favorites.
Well,
That's all I
Lambda
can say.
Epsilon agrees with you. They say the meaning is so good. Um,
Oh, I think so.
and Diana says, I wrote a book of poetry for emotional healing. I haven't published it yet. It would be amazing if the book had an impact on people. You never know, because, like, when I wrote A Freelancer's Tale, it was more or less somebody on the channel asked me to, if I've ever published on Amazon before. And so it was more of a challenge. And so
Mhm.
I wanted something that could be quick and easy for me to write. And so I thought, and I've been asked a few times how I got started as a writer. So I thought, yeah, let's do this. So I did A Freelancer's Tale, and I've only got 2 reviews on it, but both reviews were how it impacted their lives, and it was it
Yeah,
felt like more of a book of hope that there, there,
very good.
if you keep pushing forward, the light is
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to get there.
Yeah,
And so
very good.
even A Freelancer's Tale impacted somebody, and so I tell Diana,
Yeah.
do it. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, just do it because. But as I said, my book only sold maybe 5 copies. But out of these 5 copies, one person emailed me to say I
Yeah.
saved their lives. I mean, like really, look at this compliment. So as I always tell people who complain on social networks, my posts don't get seen, the algorithm, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you never know who is watching.
Yeah.
There are more lurkers online than there are actually active users. So you never know. Continue posting. Just do your thing. Someone will see it. It might take a long time, yes, but this is the game. Be patient and consistent. So to comment on what you said, just write your book, just publish it, and you never know who you may impact. Really, that's
Yeah.
important.
Katie C says, dying with a smile on your face is the best way to die. Cendrine worded it beautifully.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, so you have several. Here's something that you've touched a little bit about earlier. You have several created forms on your website. They are looks like they're instructional forms on how to write various styles. And is this various
Mhm.
styles of haiku?
Yes, they're basically based on the haiku in the sense that the most important message of good haiku is them short, brief, impactful. So that's what I wanted to work on. Like teach people basically through those forms that anyone can write poetry. Anyone can write poetry, as long as their goal is to tell a story that seeks to impact readers. That's basically what it is. So, of course, a poetry form has to have rules
Mm, yeah.
so that it's different from other forms. But they're basically that's why I have rules. But really, the goal of those forms is to show people that they, first of all, they can write poetry, they can write, and they can write really well if they, you know, trust the process. Really, that's what it is. So yeah, I created six or seven poetry
Yeah, I think it was
forms
seven. Yeah.
and one type or of flash fiction as well.
Yeah, I saw
So
that too.
people can go and check it out, and it looks complicated, but when you practice, when you actually get to write, you'll see how fun it is. It's a good mental challenge.
And to access those forms, you just go to our website, which is in the video's description, and it says forms on your nav bar, right?
So I changed the I changed the website a little bit because I'm working on a new exhibit called the Homes We Seek, and you'll see it in the menu section. So the created forms in the menu section will be under projects.
Okay. And yeah, I looked at them earlier, and some of them look interesting. I'm like I said, I'm not. I've never really dabbled a lot in poetry. I'm more of a horror writer. I grew up with Stephen King, so that gives you let you know how my stories go. It was funny. We were teasing that I will never be able to write a children's book. Someone's gonna die. Um, Okay, so I know a lot of viewers are planning to on publishing books in the near future, and I've got two here tonight. What advice would you give them for proper ways to market their books? What has worked best for you in the past? Outside of, I know you use Drafted Digital, which I have before. Um, it'll help you connect to a ton of different platforms. Have you ever used like Ingram Spark, or do you use any kind of ads on like Facebook or anything like that?
No, I basically don't waste my money on things that don't work for me. This is for me. Ads have never worked for me. Never. For my photography books, anything that involve visual content, I publish through Blurb,
Oh yeah.
Blurb. And Blurb allows you to distribute widely as well through Ingram.
Oh.
But I've never worked with them directly.
Mm.
That's so I only worked with Amazon first. I was in KU initially. I left because it was terrible for my sales.
Oh, yeah, Kindle
And I'm
Unlimited?
saying
Yeah.
that because I'm a poet. I'm saying that because I'm a poet. I'm not saying that for everyone. There are some genres that don't work on KU at all. Poetry is one of them. Uh, so I left because I wanted to see if it was really me doing something wrong when I was trying to promote my books and so on and so forth. It wasn't me. It was KU. It was Amazon that was burying my books because it was poetry and doesn't sell enough.
Yeah.
So don't take my comments as something like it's not going to work if you just use Amazon. It really depends on your genre. Some genres are more successful than others, and I'm sure you will agree with me as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Yeah.
So I only use Draft to Digital because I love how they acquired Smashwords 2 years ago. So the availability is even wider than it used to be because of so many partners now. So that's basically what it is. So Ingram, I have no experience, direct experience with them. only through Blurb. But for if anyone is watching or listening now or later, uh, if you want to put together a visual book, multimedia book, uh, Blurb is really, really, really excellent. But unfortunately, when you publish a visual book, the printing costs are really,
Oh,
really high.
oh yeah.
So the price you have to sell your book to get a little bit of royalties is to be really, really high too. So that's one of the downside of visual books.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Draft to digital is very cheap in comparison, really.
Yeah, I think they only take like 5% when they make a sale.
I think it's 10%,
Is it?
10%, and then it depends on the store or the distributor. Everyone has to be paid eventually, but we
'Cause I know.
get usually we get around 60% offers.
See, and at one point, Ingram Spark used to charge $50 to create your account, and then that's why I decided
Mhm.
to start using Draft to Digital because they don't have an
Mhm.
upfront fee; they just take a percentage of the sale. And at that point, when I signed up, what was it, like 2 years ago, they were like one of the lowest.
Mhm.
Um, they were one of the most affordable ones to use because their
Mhm.
fees were even lower than Ingram Spark back then. I don't know what it is now. I haven't used Ingram Spark, but yeah, Draft to Digital. I haven't sold anything from it, but then again, I don't market it, so the page is there,
Oh
and I
yeah,
think I got a link somewhere.
to answer the question about what's I think the best way to market your book, which I haven't answered because I was talking too much. Sorry, guys.
So,
It's all. I'm just going to say one word: strategy.
hmm,
Strategy. So you have the tactics, which are all the little things that you use to build your entire strategy. So it's really about your strategy. And one strategy, I have a strategy for each book. You cannot just say, oh, I have 30 books and I'm going to promote them in the same way all the time. No, it depends on the genre, it depends on you, it depends on your readers, so many different things. So
oh, yeah.
the keyword is strategy, really. Patience, commitment, hard work, and yeah, marketing. Marketing seems to be a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but you can make it fun for yourself. Anything can be marketing. I'm having a lot of fun talking to you, answering questions, but it's
Marketing
still
your book.
marketing. No, but it's still marketing. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. I'm here talking to you, having a load of fun. I'm not gonna lie, but it's still marketing. But I'm having a lot of fun. That's what a lot of authors don't understand: is have fun when you promote your products. Talk to people directly, joke around. I mean, have fun with your marketing, and it won't look like work. I can guarantee you.
Nice. And I'm having fun too. Neil says, I may have missed it, but what is a flash coup? Now, flash coup was part of the forms that you have, right? What exactly is a
Yeah,
flash coup?
it's
Is
the
that the
flash coup. The flash coup is my form of flash fiction. It's a mini form of flash fiction. So you would have to look at it, and because I have examples as well. So, and I have a free ebook that explains what my
hmm,
forms are and so on and so forth with examples in them. So yeah, the ebook is free, so don't worry about it. So you can download it anywhere you want from any bookstore you want, and you have examples and explain how it is. But you can also see it on my blog because some of my posts I've some of my forms as well. So explain, I have a few tutorials as well on how to write them. So that's what it is.
cool? Um, let's see. Sam says, I used to write a ton of poetry, but then I got busy with life. Don't we all?
It happens.
I used to do a lot of writing, then I got busy being an editor. Um, it pays the mortgage.
It's a lot of work.
Okay, so,
Editor is a lot of work.
oh yeah.
A lot of work.
It also depends on the people you have writing underneath you.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can tell you stories. Let's see. So, outside of marketing, are there any other tidbits of knowledge you'd like to share that you've learned over the past 19 years of writing, or your artwork, or is there anything Any kind of
Yes.
hurdles that you had to overcome or whatever? Rolling her eyes.
Treat yourself. Treat yourself the way you would like others to treat you. Meaning, learn to develop healthy self confidence. Healthy self confidence. Meaning, keep an eye on your ego because that's usually when problems arise. So, learn to develop healthy self confidence. We all know imposter syndrome, you know, that's like, but sometimes you have to scream louder than it. Tell it to shut up for it to shut up. So, one thing that worked for me is to never compare myself to others. The only exception, the only exception is when, at the beginning, when I wanted to understand my style. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, so I wanted to understand what made my style unique. I wanted to understand that. So I went and compared myself to famous writers, try to emulate their styles. It didn't work, but it gave me so much insight into how to create my own style and how to understand it. And you also understand your style when you understand yourself a little better. So this comes with growing up, with experience, and so on and so forth. So never the only reason why you should compare yourself to others is to understand your own style. Otherwise, look at other people's works as their style. This belongs to them. There's always worse than you, there's always better than you. So who cares? Forget about that. Don't even take that into consideration. Do not compare yourself to others. That's one of the biggest piece of advice I would give anyone.
It's one of the biggest things I try to push is that you're only in competition with yourself.
Absolutely.
Um,
Said it better than me.
Chris asks, totally random question, but what advice would you give a writer whose life is chaotic and they're burned out in writing and blogging, and all that just doesn't feel fun anymore? So how do you get that fun
Do
back?
something else. Do something else. So a lot of people, many people try to fight writer's block. They're like, "Oh, I have writer's block. Oh my goodness, blah, 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 blah. It's unfair." Embrace it. Embrace writer block. Tell it to fuck off. Sorry, I'm swearing. That's the only time I will swear.
Please.
Tell it to f off. That's
Yeah. What show do you
because
think
at the
you're
end
on?
of the day, more you're trying to fight writer's block, the more it will follow you. So start by embracing it. And then change your routine. Do things different. Everyone has been burnt out. The best way to understand yourself and to understand what's wrong with you is to take a step back. It's just the same, and I know you will agree with me, when you're in the editing phase in your manuscript and you've read your manuscript dozens and dozens and dozens of times, and you've read it so much that you can't even see the words you wrote. Because you can guess in your mind, oh, I wrote that there, I know it is there. Then take a break for, let's say, 2 months, and then go back to your manuscript, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I
Oh yeah.
missed this,
You find all kinds of
that,
stuff.
oh my. And you're too burnt out. When you're tired and life is chaotic, take a break, do something different, have fun, meet friends, go for walks, go see a movie, learn a new skill. I mean, do something different and then come back to it and you will be refreshed. I can guarantee. But if you stay stuck and if you refuse to take a step back, then you will be stuck for many, sometimes years. You may be stuck for years. So take a step back and do something different. Sometimes it's something as simple as a conversation with someone you trust, getting a different opinion, a different view from someone. even a random stranger. Sometimes you may meet someone online and chat, and without even telling them something, anything about your life, they may say something to you that gives you a totally new perspective on the way you were seeing things. So just take a break. Do something different for a change. And sometimes it may take 2 days for you to realize, I was going the wrong way. Sometimes it may take you 6 months or 2 years. But at the end of the day, when you return to it, if you feel refreshed and you feel like life is beautiful again, I should say, then that's what you needed to get back to what you wanted to achieve.
That's awesome.
I don't know if it makes sense, but
No, does to
that's
me.
my big spiel.
Chris says, I love that you just go for it and put all kinds of stuff, blogging, fiction, poetry, photography, watercolor. That's awesome. You got to be fearless to hit that publish button.
Self-confidence. That's what I said. You build your self-confidence and you think people are going to judge me. People are going to judge me. You can't help it. People judge me my entire life, like everyone else. I'm like, yeah, it comes in here, it's out there. I do not care. And that's, you feel liberated when you start getting at a certain age. I'm not old, by all means. I'm not old, but I've reached a certain age. I'm almost middle-aged now. So there are a few things that I know about myself, and that comes with my experience with depression, my experience with so many different things. My mom's suicide, taking care of my grandmother, it's all these things, because no matter what you do in life, there will be people to judge you. No matter how good intention you are, there will always be people to tell you you're doing it wrong. You suck. I hate you. Blah, 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 blah. Do not listen. Just do your thing. And if people judge you, then it means you're doing, it's cliche, but you're actually doing something wrong, because you're actually shaking people's foundations. And that's what you want. Some people will react like adults. They will tell you, oh yeah, I'm impressed, blah, blah, blah. If they're not interested beyond that, who cares? But at least you know that you got a reaction from them. But then you will also get the opposite reaction. Negative people, trolls, will attack you. Yes, it's hard, because sometimes some trolls and people bullies can be terrible. And I understand that it can be very, very hard. But when you reach a certain age, those bullies and those trolls, you don't pay attention anymore, because you have a choice. You do not have to be, as we said earlier, you do not have to be on social networks all day. You have a choice. You can choose to say, you know what? I'm turning off my phone. I'm turning off my computer. I'm not going to listen. And I'm going to block these people. I don't need to hear from them. If in your heart you know you're doing the right thing, no matter how much hatred you get, you will get out, maybe not completely unscathed, but you know you're doing something right. Because if people always telling you, oh yeah, fantastic, and you have no haters, it means you're not doing the right thing, or you're not doing everything completely.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite memes on social media is the scene from Pirates of the Caribbean. You are indeed the worst writer I've ever heard of. Ah, but you have heard of me. That's how I feel it.
Exactly.
Haters gonna hate.
Oh, absolutely. You can't prevent it. You can't prevent it from happening, unfortunately.
But you don't want to surround yourself with a bunch of yes men either, though, because then you don't learn anything.
Exactly. That's the point. You want to make sure. Ideally, in a perfect world, even negative people would be able to say, you know what? I do not really like what you're doing, but at the end of the day, it's your life. Or I don't like it because such and such. But then, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everyone has a level of maturity that allows them to behave like adults.
Yeah.
So.
Alrighty. Well, before we wrap this up, do you have any major projects coming up? Do you have anything new coming out? Because I know you just
always have something going on. But yeah, the major project I have right now is the exhibit that I recently launched, The Homes We Seek, which is
that's available on your website, right?
something that was born after my the latest book I released. So I really wanted to study the definition of home. We often think of home as a place, a static place, our house. But then as an immigrant, I've moved around, and home is not always a static place. It's not always fixed. We're always in movement. We change all the time. So
Kind of like
the
home is
title of
where
the
the
home
heart is.
you'll see exactly. So I wanted to look at that at my definition of home as a place of movement, a place of inner dialogue, and I wanted to put that into basically images and poetry and stuff like that. So I launched the exhibit. Initially, I just wanted images, photos, and poetry, multimedia. But then I realized that most of my body of work actually has this theme, which is something I discovered very recently, which is interesting. So now the exhibit will have several parts. So yeah, that's the major project I have right now. It should take me quite a long time to complete.
And that one is accessible on your website too, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay, I was
everything
gonna say
everything is on the website.
I think I came across that one.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, greetings from a rental bike in Taipei, Taiwan. How's it going, Daniel? And Katie C
Oh.
says there's a difference between being negative and giving constructive criticism. That's one thing I talk about a lot is I do read the reviews to my books, especially if they are a
Mhm.
proper critique. Now, a proper critique will
Mhm.
show you what some things that you might want to change. You don't have to listen to everybody's suggestion, but if there's a bunch of people pointing out the exact same issue, you might want to check it. But
Yes.
for somebody to come in and says, "Oh, I hate the book," without giving a reason, I ignore those. Um,
Absolutely.
they're just ignore the trolls, man. I do. I just don't care.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. It is 8:11.
You.
We're gonna wrap this up. It was a lot of fun having you on. Um, I wouldn't mind having you on again, maybe when you have your more of your home
Like,
things going. I do.
well, thank you very much. Very, very much for your time and the opportunity. It was really fun. Thank you.
You are welcome, and good luck with your newest project. I can't wait to see other
Thank
images.
you.
Do you have any plans for any more fractals coming out? I'm a big
Oh,
fan of fractals.
I've created tons of fractals, so there
Okay,
will be more. Yeah.
awesome. I don't know why I've always loved fractal images, so I think it's the
Yeah.
complexity and the mixture of colors that are in them that's really eye catching. I love them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you very
So
much,
beautiful. Yeah.
and you can reach, let's see, Cendrine's website is available in the description down below. Her books are also available if you go to her website, and it's on you have a link, I believe, that shows the list of all of your books,
Mhm.
and you're
Yeah.
on like a
Some
slew of
bookstore.
social media. So, as you got all the
And
links to all those.
if any people who were here in the chat want to reach out, email me with questions regarding writing, publishing, and so on and so forth, by all means, go ahead, email me. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions.
And you also, if they wanted to sign up for the Auroras and Blossoms one, right? Is that where they can submit their work to you directly?
Yes,
That is on your
yes.
website as well. Or that's actually on the
Yep.
Auroras and Blossoms website. And that's also
Exactly.
in the description of this video. Well, thank you very
Yep.
much. And it
Thank you.
was nice meeting you and chatting with you. Have a good
Bye bye.
evening, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.